and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Mondays Down South. Here with Evan. I've got a bear covered a little bit here with Mr. Bakulik bailing out on us last minute, which, by the way, I just wanted to say, he said, let's do Wednesday, and then went to a Brett Young concert. So, but
yeah.
All jokes aside, I hope he's having a good time. Can't fault him for that. We're going to start off this episode with something a little new this week. We acquired a bit of a little partnership sponsorship action, which I'm very excited about. Sat down with my buddy Rohit last Friday night. I remember going over to his place a few weekends ago, I'd probably say a month or so ago, after a long night out in the city, and walk into his crib, and I look over and there's this beautiful decanter, and it's in the shape of a dragon. And I'm like completely wowed. And I ask him, I'm like, what is that? And long story short, we sit down Friday night and he mentions to me that him and his cousin have a little whiskey company going on called the Final Pour Whiskey Company. And they make beautiful Scotch glasses and they make beautiful decanters. So I highly recommend everyone check that out. I'm going to put a link under the description for that in this episode with the YouTube, and put it on our Instagrams. And going forward, you'll be hearing about them, because we're excited about that, especially because I think Ev can speak to it, and I'm sure Bakul could speak to it if he was on here. But we all love our whiskey, and we love a little creativity. They got some Star Wars, some dragons, all kinds of stuff to speak to people's tastes. No pun intended. So please check that out when you guys get a moment. And we're gonna start our episode off with a little sponsor action. I'm excited about that.
Man. We're blowing up here. But yeah, I checked out their website. It looks like they got some awesome stuff, and certainly the vehicle of which you drink alcohol, specifically like nice bourbons and whiskeys, makes a big difference. So sweet, dude.
100%. Very excited about that. And we'll get the ball rolling on sports. Zito's not here, so no beating around the bush here. I mean, epic weekend. I don't really think there's much else to be said. I mean, I had Evan, our buddy Sugg, and a couple people just posting saying, like, this might be the best weekend of football they've ever watched holistically. Every single game was a one-possession game. Some outcomes that certain people probably didn't expect. Well, I guess all outcomes Evan didn't expect, and I guess all outcomes I did expect. Well, I mean, I was 3 for 4.
Green Bay, yeah. No one got Green Bay. I don't think. Yeah.
Nobody expected Green Bay. But maybe that's the one to start with, because it was a game where the Packers started off with a touchdown opening drive. They ran down the field, no issues whatsoever. And then for the next 3.5 quarters, all they did was kick a field goal and ended up losing in a crazy wowzer of a game with a blocked punt for a touchdown to the point where I don't know what happened to that team. It was kind of mind-boggling. I don't really even know what to say. Like, they look like they were going to dominate from the get-go, or at least have a great offensive game, and they just stalled. They had one great drive, and that was it. And that's really shocking to me. I don't know what keeps happening with that team, because this seems similar to their loss to the Tampa Bay last year, where they were on fire, and then they walked into that game with Tampa Bay at home, if I remember correctly, and took an L there too, in a game where I think they could have won. I don't know what's happening in back-to-back years, because they, coming into the postseason, by far look like a top 2 to 3 team in the NFL, without question. I mean, they were blowing everybody out the water. With the exception of their week 1 loss, every single game they played was a great one. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I can't really speak to anything in particular, but it still blows my mind to think about that.
Yeah. I mean, that one was a complete shocker. Like, I think in like the first quarter or second quarter, I think I texted you guys, like, all right, I'm not even gonna like bother paying too close of attention. This one, the Packers gonna roll over them, because I was really confident in them going to the game, because it was such a cold weather game. It was like, and it was gonna snow. It was like a classic Lambeau game, and you got Jimmy G on the other side, who's quite banged up. So Jimmy G completely banged up in that weather, and I can't imagine he's a cold weather quarterback, and their team in general is too good in the cold, given that where they play their home games. So I was really confident going in, especially after that first drive and seeing a couple of San Francisco possessions offensively. I'm like, they're not going to be able to move the ball that consistently enough to keep up with what we always assume that Aaron's going to do. And then, the Packers just couldn't move the ball after that. I was listening to Aaron's interview on the Pat McAfee show. I mean, he kind of chalked it up to them stopping the run, and then, getting some pressure on him and stuff like that. But yeah, really shocking. But ultimately it came down to special teams. So it's not like the Niners turned the game around offensively. Like, the defense played well. We know they have good defense. But those special teams plays, the blocked kick before the first half was probably a kind of game saver as well. And obviously the blocked punt at the end. And then they put together one decent drive at the end, which is all they needed to put them away. So really stunning, to be honest, to see the Packers go out this early Given what they had done all season. I mean, their first home loss all season.
That's going to be brutal for their fans, man. Like if I was a fan of that team, you're going into that expecting we are the team to beat in this playoffs at this point, or at least, one of the top 2 to 3. And for them to lose in the way that they did, especially when you get all your hopes up thinking, oh, we're going to win this. Like this is, right off the bat, you're like, we're in a good position. And I'm the only thing I can chalk it up to is lack of running. I mean, when it's really cold outside, obviously people might think, hey, that plays to Green Bay's benefit since they're, they're used to playing in the cold. But either way, like it becomes a run first, I think, in the trenches kind of game. And I think basically it might have just come down to the 49ers offensive line and defensive line being marginally better than the Packers offensive line and defensive line. And like you said, special teams is something, man. I feel like it's one of the lost art forms in the sense of what people think about nowadays with football, with all the crazy offensive dynamics and how do you stop these crazy offenses. But a lot of the best teams in the NFL play great special teams, have great returners, and have great, speaking of great returners, we talk about Tyreek Hill later, but like there's just examples of, when games are close and teams are pretty even in circumstances, how much of a difference special teams can make, field position, field goals, things of that nature. So that was epic. It was a great weekend in general for special teams, though. I think a lot of big kicks, a lot of big moments with that. So that's another thing to write home about why these games are so exciting. I know I teed us off with Packers 49ers. You got another matchup that you want to we'll talk about all 4, but I don't know if there's a particular order you want to follow.
Yeah, we might as well kind of go in order. I mean, and to your point, like at this point in the year, the teams are so close in terms of kind of their skill level. Like it comes down to things like special teams where the margin of error is so thin. So, I mean, and just back on the Packers, like someone needs to be fired for that game, in my opinion. And it's got to be the special teams coordinator. I know nothing about their special teams coach. If he's like some long, like maybe, he's some legend of a special teams coach, but like, man, 2 years in a row, like you said. And honestly, I think that puts LaFleur in kind of a hot seat situation. I'm not saying he's going to get fired anytime soon, but like that's back-to-back early exits. But anyway, Titans, Bengals, another close game that came down to the wire. Yeah, I mean, for me, this game was about Tannehill. I think the 2 things I'll say is this game kind of proved, I think, that Tannehill's not the guy. 3 picks. One of them's just a great play on a screen pass. Another one I think was a tip ball, but and the other thing I'll say is Derrick Henry coming back. It almost, in hindsight, feels like they put too much emphasis on that, where it was like they were just like so focused around the kind of hubbub behind. It's like, oh, the king is back, and it's like, well, no, we've been winning without him. Like, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And like Dante Foreman's been running well, but yeah, I don't know. Tannehill, just not the guy for me. I think they should be looking to upgrade elsewhere because like the defense played pretty well. They got like 9 sacks on Burrow. And obviously Burrow's going to make plays and Mixon's going to make plays. But yeah, close game. The Bengals kind of almost threw it away at the end. And then their sensational rookie kicker, who is all of a sudden a media superstar, Evan McPherson, saved the day with another 50-plus yard boot. But yeah, I don't know if you had any other thoughts.
You want to talk about a young Bengals squad showing up when it counts. They're like a bunch of like kids out there just kind of figuring it out as they go every week. And man, are they showing up. I picked them this week, so I'm not surprised they won, but I didn't expect this to be a 19-16 game. I thought it'd be a little bit more high scoring. So props to both defenses. They both played better than I thought. I wasn't expecting this from the Bengals defense, the whole Tennessee to 16. I thought that was pretty impressive. I think you've been more on the Tannehill being good train or being, a quarterback that could quarterback a franchise more than I have. I think from the get-go, I was a little bit weary of Tannehill. I think sometimes he's proved me wrong in the regular season, but overarchingly, I just kind of thought the contract he got was crazy high for somebody who had half a good season with the Tennessee team. And that was the year that nobody expected him to do anything. And then they made it all the way to the AFC Championship and were like 1 possession away or something, whatever it was, from going to the Super Bowl after they beat the Ravens, who were the 1 seed that year. So I remember that. But since then, I don't really think he's been good enough for them to be, the division champions of the AFC South in the AFC, but he's never done much more than that. And they've kind of underwhelmed in the playoffs every year. So I've never been big on the Tannehill train. And this is just yet another example why. The problem is, I don't know how much longer his contract is, but he's locked in for a good sum of money. You have $28 million a year for at least another year or two. So it's going to be hard for them to, 1, dispose of that money, and then 2, find somebody to replace that. Second part of that is I think they not rushed, but I think they put too much of an emphasis on Henry being back the way you said, but not just on the emphasis of him being back, but on the way they used him. I don't know that he was ready to be the King Henry of old, because, you know, he came back much faster from an injury than I think we anticipated. And like you said, they were winning before he got back, and Foreman has been running the ball very well. And by no means am I saying Foreman is better than Derek, but at the same time, you can't just say, okay, this guy's a big name. He's been one of our best players, you know, for years. We gotta give him all the carries, or we gotta give him, like, you know, the majority by a large sum of the carries when he's just coming back from injury and you're fighting for a playoff, like you're fighting to stay alive in the playoffs. And Foreman didn't get, I don't think, as many carries, but the ones he got, he was clearly more explosive. I mean, he had some huge plays, and I think if maybe they gave him a few more, the results could have been a little bit different. And I mean that with no offense to Derrick Henry. He is, if not the best, one of the top 3 to 5 running backs in the NFL year in and year out. And I just don't think he was like ready to come back and, you know, take the brunt the way that he normally does because of big injuries. So that's my takeaway. Shout out to AJ Brown though. He had an amazing catch, and he's the future of the NFL in the sense of receivers. But man, the Bengals are fun to watch, and I can't wait for the offensive explosion that's going to come next week.
Oh my gosh!
Second, but
yeah, the Bengals that they keep getting disrespected, but like the players expect to win. They got Joe Burrow, who's the, you know, king of swag or whatever you want to call him, at the helm, man. They expect to win, you know, and they're young, so they're naive, so they have no other reason to think otherwise. But you know, that's kind of the beauty of it, right? So
they aren't jaded yet, man. They aren't
yeah,
jaded.
Exactly.
Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Mixon. They got T. Higgins, like all the youth. It's crazy. Even Boyd is young. They got a young squad, and then their kicker, like you said, a rookie just coming out there. I mean, I love the comment about him coming up to Joe Burrow and saying, "Hey, it looks like we're going to the game," before he kicked a 52-yarder to win the game. Like that's you know, big time stuff right there, and it's gonna be memorable for a long time. The other thing I want to say is I really appreciate their fortitude, and this really shows how momentum plays in the NFL. Like if you get hot at the right time, it really can carry over. It's similar to how the Titans got to the AFC Championship, you know, a few years back when they faced, I believe it was the Chiefs. The same thing kind of I'm feeling that same kind of energy from the Bengals, because, you know, they had a couple of good games in the middle of the season, then they had a couple of rough ones, couple good, couple of rough ones. I remember we had a segment with Dolan, Dolan, and Bakulik a few like probably a month or two ago, where we were like, what do we make of the Bengals? And I think Dolan said like he felt like they were overrated and they're maybe a year too early. And I think Bakulik, you know, he completely wrote him off, if I'm trying to remember correctly. And I think I was kind of on like the middle, and I think you were a little bit higher, but they clearly just got hot at the right time, and they're making everybody bite their words. So I don't know. I got a lot of respect for a young team that can ball out like that in this circumstance. It's crazy.
Yeah, we'll see if they have enough. We'll get to picks later on, but we'll see if they have enough. But I guess should we carry on to the, you know, we were talking earlier, and, you know, maybe calling it the greatest weekend of football in our lifetimes is maybe excessive, because to your point, those first 2 games, they were really close at the end, but they weren't overly exciting per se. And then the just pure and utter chaos that ensued on Sunday, specifically starting at halftime or so of the first game. Rams-Bucks. Rams come out and dominate the first 2.5 quarters, something like that. You know, Brady and the Bucks obviously pretty decimated without a lot of the guys at wide receiver. Offensive line is completely banged up. Wirfs did not play. And, you know, Stafford torches them in the first half. The defense is playing fantastic. And then the Rams, they tried to find like every conceivable way within the bounds of how you play football to blow a game. Like I've never seen a team like they found literally every possible way to blow a game. They tried to get it out of the bag and hand it back over to Tom, and then they stuck it out at the end. But I'll let you kick off with initial reactions of
I think there's some sort of hack going on in the NFL where teams say, like, if we're playing against Tom Brady, yeah, sure, he's a GOAT, like he's, you know, one of the greatest up on this field, but like let's try to make it easier for him. Like, are you kidding me? Like why does this always happen? Like the Falcons, I think of the Falcons as your perfect example, right? I wanted to roast Zach for this because I was going to make a perfect comparison of like the Rams were the closest thing to a Falcons I've seen in a long time. But fortunately, Stafford and Cup, Stafford made that incredible throw to Cup at the end of the game, which was just insane. But they had no business. Like, they dominated. They straight up dominated that game. They completely dominated the first half. But I think it goes to show that people are like maybe just afraid of Brady, because in the second half, they don't know how to game plan. Like, I feel like they got all this stuff working, and then the second half comes around and they're playing against a guy that like is so used to coming back and making big plays and stuff. And I think teams just kind of get nervous, and coordinators get nervous, and they start doing things that aren't them, because that's what I felt like happened in this game. I mean, they straight up dominated the first half. Like, and admittedly, they just looked like the better team overall in every scope of the game in the first half. And then the second half, they were just making mistakes on mistakes on mistakes, and that's on them. And like, again, props to Brady and the Bucs, because they made a resilient comeback effort. And if you're going to give them the ball in those situations where they have nothing to lose, they're going to go out there and have fun with it. But at the same time, like, what are you doing, Rams? Like, you have a chance to go out there and dominate the Super Bowl champion of the previous year and go into the NFC Championship with all the momentum and arguably being the best team, or the most well-rounded team in the playoffs still, and you do that. I don't know, that was a little bit concerning, but at the same time, huge shout out to Matt Stafford. I mean, we're focused on the Bucs, but even if the second half was rough on their part, they still won the game, and they were a dominant team the first half, which shows their ceiling. Having Akers back has been big for them. No disrespect to Henderson or Michelle, but when Akers is healthy, he's clearly their best back, and he's still got a ways to go.
Holds on to the ball.
Holds on the football, yeah. And then Cooper Kupp, man, every week he's a marvel, and it's no surprise that he made the big play to put him in position to win that game after quite the ending there. But I'm just excited for the Rams. I've been on their train all year, and they've obviously had some weeks where they fumbled, no pun intended, and this week they secured it. So they're going to the NFC Championship, and Matt Stafford, man, that man deserves some credit. He's been playing for so long, and he's finally getting his opportunity in a championship game. So excited for Stafford.
Yeah, I thought he was a little overhyped in the regular season, but he's shown out here in the playoffs. And the one guy that didn't do a lot to blow that game was Stafford. Like, even Kupp fumbled one of them. Like you mentioned, Akers, but he fumbled twice. The game would have been over if he scored that touchdown in the first half, and then he fumbled again at the end, which is just inexplicable. But Stafford was just lights out, man. And if he keeps playing like that, they're going to be tough to beat. But this is kind of why I'm just kind of meh on the Rams. Like, they've kind of done this all year, and a lot of it was Stafford throwing not just interceptions, but like pick sixes, like sometimes multiple pick sixes at a game, like in that Titans game. Like that, there was a lot of that during the regular season, and now he hasn't been doing that in the playoffs. But like the team as a whole, just I don't know, man. They just find a way to make mistakes, and I don't think they, with all the mistakes that they tend to make, are a Super Bowl winning team. It's my They have the talent. They, like you said, I think they're the most well-rounded team left at this point with Green Bay out. Well, no, I mean Chiefs, but they dominated that whole game, but I still didn't feel like they deserved to win with everything at the end.
I think in the middle of the season was where they ran into their biggest snafu, right? Because at the beginning of the season, they were pretty dominant, with the exception of a loss to the Cardinals, who at the time were the best team in the NFL. And then to finish out the regular season, they were pretty hot. Like, they were looking really good. So going into playoffs, they looked really good. Week 1, they were of the playoffs. They won that game handedly. And then this game, they were pretty dominant in the first half. I mean, literally, it was one half of bad football in the last, I don't know, I'd probably say 5 weeks that I've seen that or it was concerning, and it was against a good team. I mean, I understand the Buccaneers were hurt, but even with the injuries you're talking about, their talent is still probably like 90% better than better than 90% of the teams in the NFL. They still have crazy talent on that defensive side, and they still have Mike Evans, and they still have like 4 running backs that are good. Like, I mean, it's not like the Buccaneers are untalented and have Tom Brady. Like, I mean, come on, they have Gronk. They're still a very good team. Like, so it makes sense that this would be a competitive game in some senses, but the Rams just let it be too competitive because they were the better team overall. So, but if you can be dominant against a team like the Buccaneers for a half the way that you are, clearly your ceiling is extremely high. So that's something that I can't take away from them.
I do think the areas where the Bucs were decimated, though, like, were also strengths of the Rams, which made it hard for them. Like, obviously the offensive line was the biggest thing. So like the Rams pass rush, right? Like in the first half was kind of the big thing that the Bucs couldn't do anything on. And then like at wide receiver, it's like they have Jalen Ramsey, so they have the one shutdown corner that can go off Evans, and then all the other guys are honestly just kind of garbage. And then in the the secondary, their run D is usually pretty strong, but their secondary tends to struggle, so they have Stafford to let them up. But still expected to be, well, I was close, but didn't expect the Rams to completely dominate the game for sure. But I mean, now they got to kind of revenge that loss to the Niners from a couple weeks ago. So we'll see what happens. I guess we'll talk about game previews in a bit, but we can move along to Chiefs Bills here. You want to give the quick recap from your perspective, and then
what do you even say, bro? This was epic. No team deserved to lose that game. Both teams gave us a show and a half. It really, I think, just came down to who had the ball to start and who had the ball to finish. And per usual, that ended up being Patrick Mahomes, and he finished the game in brilliant fashion. But you could argue that Allen was as good, if not better, than Mahomes this game. I mean, Allen was as perfect as you could be in a losing effort. Every single time he got the football, he did something majestic with it. Fourth down after fourth down conversions. And on the flip side of that, the Chiefs played out of their minds. Their special teams was amazing. Kelsey did Kelsey things. Hill did Hill things. Mahomes obviously did Mahomes things. And then, of course, Gabriel Davis that came out of nowhere and had this insane game for the Bills. I mean, it was just – that is what I'm talking about when you talk about fun football. I mean, that was an offensive – display. And again, both teams should walk out of there with their head held high. And even with the Bills losing, I think they got a lot of flack towards the end of season where people were saying, hey, we don't think, the Bills are going to be very, very proficient in the playoffs. And they have a dominant performance against the Patriots. And then they almost took down the reigning AFC champions of the last two seasons and a team that has had their number. All I got is respect for both these teams. I don't really have much else to say because this game was so incredible on both ends where both teams played just amazing football and just such fun football to watch. All I can say is I got respect for both teams and congratulations to both teams for an incredible effort.
It definitely lived up to the hype, going into this game with how well both these teams were playing. You knew there was that kind of potential with this one. It lived up to the hype. I mean, how many points were scored in the last 2 minutes? 20 or something wild, just a ridiculous number. Honestly, as amazing as Pat Mahomes has played in his career, that maybe is the best I've ever seen him play. I mean, he was sensational. Certainly Josh, I think the best game I've ever seen Josh play, which again is saying a lot considering both of their careers to this point. And Gabe Davis, like you said, just breaking ankles in the secondary. Granted, it was some of the backups out there, but some of those moves he was putting on people, dude was getting wide open. I will say, as much as I want to, rah-rah both teams, that, neither of them, deserve to lose, which is true. But, the Bills should have won that game, a few different times. 13 seconds left and you kick it through the back of the end zone. Whoever made that decision, I mean, is why not squib or pooch or something? If you're giving Pat the ball with even 13 seconds left, he has a chance. So you got to try and cut that down on it somehow. So there were a few decisions there on the Bills' end that, are really questionable. But ultimately, I just feel bad for them because they, it looked like they had finally gotten over the hump and we're going to be able to knock off the Chiefs in a playoff game in Arrowhead. But, just couldn't quite get it done. And this is the game that's going to change the overtime rules as well. Because for a game like that, for the Bills not to get a chance to respond in overtime, it's just a darn shame. So
that really sucks. I don't really know what the best way to approach overtime is. I don't think there is any perfect rule set. I guess you keep going until both teams get an opportunity, almost like a college format, I guess, but you still kick off the length of the field. I guess that's the only thing you can do. I don't really know I don't know what I would change. It's an unfortunate circumstances because this was an offensive show, but with both teams scoring and then after both teams score, whoever scores first wins. I agree that's a little tough. I don't know, man. I guess all you can do is say I don't know how you put the writing on it, but basically you keep going until both teams have the same amount of possessions and one team doesn't score, I guess, similar to college. I have no idea, but
that's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, that could take a long time, right? That's the one thing I don't love about college is that it's like basically red zone offense. But if you do whole length of the field, with those two teams, that could take forever,
Yeah,
6 minute.
not scores, yeah.
Well, or if they just, even worse, they just keep scoring. Like 6-minute drives each way, they just keep scoring back and forth. Like,
how many quarters you play? Yeah, you gotta stop it.
So I don't know what the answer is, but what they have currently, I think that game is going to be the one to force change for sure.
We'll see. This is also rare though, man. I mean, we're talking two dynamic quarterbacks that, reaching the pinnacles of their career. Not even, both have a long ways to go, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like Alex was saying in our group message, like people are comparing this to the next Brady Manning, where like every time they play, it's fireworks, right? Like even if Brady won more often, you knew every time those two played, you were watching two incredible quarterbacks play each other, and you knew they were both going to be Hall of Famers, and that's kind of what you feel about Mahomes and Allen right now. So I don't know. And this feels like a similar situation where the Chiefs are probably going to win with more frequency, but they do have the overall better team, in my opinion. But then Allen's kind of carrying his weight and keeping a squad in there, like in this situation. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and think about the AFC, right? Because with Rodgers and Brady both potentially retiring in the next few years, like assuming, no quarterbacks change spots, like you're going to have, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if the Ravens get back what they had going there for a while with Lamar, like you got Lamar out there. Like, I mean, dude, those first four are probably going to be top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. I would have to think by that point.
I don't know. Maybe you consider Kyler Murray in the running on the other side, but like if you're not counting people like Stafford, who are maybe a generation above, but in that generation, you easily have 5 of the top 6 or 7 in one conference. So that's going to be crazy to think about.
Yeah,
NFC has a long ways to go to catch up there when the big guys retire.
Yeah, all the veterans are out in the NFC, but yeah, I guess should we go on to some game? I mean, other big news: Sean Payton retired. That was a bit of a surprise. So kind of started to hear rumblings of that earlier in the week, and then it happened pretty quickly. So kind of a surprise there.
I really didn't at this stage, but I guess he just kind of realized it was a situation where he was going to be in flux for like 4 or 5 years of rebuilding the organization, and he was probably old enough, and his boy Drew Brees retired, and a lot of his best players were he'd had either retired or didn't have a lot to go off of, and they're 74 million cap hit or something like that right now. So I think he was just like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm just gonna go chill. There's too much pressure right now.
Yeah. Well, I think he already has a media job lined up too, so that probably helps. I think because I guess so. I think Aikman is going to Amazon, and then Peyton is taking his spot. I think is what I heard.
Thank you. I'm so tired of Cowboys bias. Like I like Aikman, but every time the Cowboys are on, he's just like he becomes like a coach for them, and I'm so tired of it. Like obviously everyone's gonna have bias towards their own team, but I think Peyton is such a good character in the sense of like he's comical and he's really funny, and I think we'll hear a little bit less bias since he wasn't a quarterback for the Saints. So I'm excited.
Right. Speaking of announcers, we praise Tony Romo all the time, but him covering the Chiefs Bills game was amazing. I loved at the end before the Butker field goal in overtime where he was like, "I'm so nervous, Jim." I was like, dude, this guy's awesome. But
he was the perfect person to call that game too.
Oh, yeah.
It was a quarterback spectacle, and again, I don't think he gets enough credit for his abilities as a quarterback. He might not have been clutch, but he definitely was a great quarterback in the NFL, and it's just so fun watching him dissect the game too. Like he knows what's going on before we could ever even guess it, and it's pretty like he's a great announcer.
And it does kind of show because he wasn't the most talented quarterback by any means. Like he didn't have much arm strength, like all that kind of stuff. And now that you see him in the booth, you're like, oh, this is how he was so successful. Like he just understands the game so well. So I think those are the big storylines. I mean, we can probably we don't have to talk about Brady and Rodgers yet, as Brady certainly seems to be hinting at him potentially retiring, which I think would be at least a surprise to me. And then I don't think there's really much talk of Rodgers retiring, but he certainly always has his interest again.
I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's going to win the MVP again. I hate there's no way he's going to retire, but I do feel like it wouldn't surprise me if he went to a different team or they figured out a way to get him to a different team. Because obviously the Packers want to keep him, but if he says, I'm not playing for you guys, like give me another opportunity, maybe they will. My only thing is that, dude, I don't know. I feel like the team this year was good enough for them to win a Super Bowl. Like, I definitely feel like they were. So, like, it's not like he's in a circumstance where, like, he can't win a Super Bowl where he is. They just didn't get over the hump. I don't know how easy it's going to be for him to go to a team that would give him a better opportunity or even the same opportunity, right? Like, I don't know where he would go.
I think that's the struggle in his head because I think he, like you said, I think he wants to leave just because he doesn't really like the organization that much. But I think, each of them realize it's each of their best opportunities to win a Super Bowl in the near future. Now, they do have a ton to figure out financially. Like they have a lot of expiring contracts. Devontae Adams, who we expect to get franchise tagged, but like they have a lot of things they need to figure out. So I think it might come down to what their plan is. And like if they wanted to start rebuilding, like, I can't imagine they would do that given that they never got a championship in the last, handful of years out of this group. But like, with Jordan Love, AJ Dillon, if you keep Devontae Adams around, like, they could go that route, although I'm not sold on Jordan Love. But anyway, we can talk about this kind of down the road as the season winds down. I think we should move on to picks. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know I was, like I said, 0-4. You were 3-1. Zach, I don't remember how he did, but
he picked the Titans. He picked the Titans. He picked the Packers along with me, and then I believe he picked the Rams with me, and I think he picked the Chiefs. So he's 2-2.
2-2. Okay. All right. Well,
maybe
not a whole lot to pick here. So much quicker segment, but starting the NFC.
We can preview. Talk to me about the game.
Yeah.
Though. I'm just going to get a pick. Yeah.
Yeah. So rematch game of a few weeks ago. 49ers going to SoFi to play the Rams, but as it was in the regular season, this projects to be, from a fan's perspective, a home game for the 49ers based on the buzz I heard in terms of where ticket prices are at, and the Rams fan base being like, since they're new to LA, being kind of meh. So the 49ers fans are going to outbid them, much to the chagrin of Kelly Stafford Matthews' wife, who kind of came out on the rant after that week 18 game where she was talking about her husband having to go silent count at home and how fans need to stop selling their tickets for higher prices and whatnot. Anyway, so that'll be an interesting dynamic. Obviously, you got Kyle Shanahan, who kind of has McVay's number a little bit, in that the 49ers tend to give the Rams a lot of problems, as they did in that week 18 game. So should definitely be interesting. I think health-wise, no major changes, I guess, from last week that I can think of. Jimmy G should get another week to be more healthy, as he continues to play for a future potentially with the 49ers, despite Trey Lance. What do you think about the matchup here?
Well, you want to make your pick now, or you want me to wait for my analysis before?
You can, give your analysis, and then we'll make picks.
I think it's a winnable game for both teams. I mean, as you know, I've been on the Rams bandwagon since literally week 1. I mean, even before the season started, I think I was big on I think I picked the Rams to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. I'd have to go back and look. It was either them or the Packers. So
I actually think I did too.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm big on them, and I've never really, even when they were struggling, I didn't really waver from them because I just feel like that team is so complete. Or at least, even if they're not complete, they have playmakers at every aspect of the game on offense and defense, and it makes it really hard for me to pick against them. But I will say that I don't know that the 49ers were the best matchup for him because, like you said, Shanahan knows McVay very well. Those teams know each other really well. And sometimes the hardest teams to beat are your own divisional ones because of that, again, just the familiarity. So it's not an ideal matchup for him. Could I see the 49ers winning? Yes, I could. Would I be upset if they won? No, I wouldn't, because my boy Deebo Samuel has been balling all season, and he's just continued to do it throughout the playoffs. And he's given everyone fits. And it's funny because we say Garoppolo and everything, but let's be real here. Like, Garoppolo is doing his job with game managing and stuff, but it's dump the ball off or hand the ball off to Deebo Samuel, throw it to George Kittle, or give it to Elijah Mitchell and have your offensive line give him those zone reads. Like, if you can't game manage that, you shouldn't be starting for the 49ers. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult to keep that job, in my opinion. That's my personal opinion. But I just feel like after they already lost to the Niners earlier this season, and with how much better they're playing at this point in the season, even if their second half wasn't great, just holistically, the fact that they were pretty dominant against the Buccaneers in the first half of the game, and Stafford showed this clutchness at the end of the game, it's going to be really hard for me to pick against the Rams, man. Like, they really do look like they want it badly. And I even said a few weeks ago, the Niners look like the team that made it to the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs a couple years ago. They look like that team. I'm not disputing that at all. They have that defensive line going with Bosa. They have that playmaker in Debo on the offense. They have George Kittle. They have Ayuk. They have Mitchell. They have all these guys. but I just think the Rams have what it takes this time. And I'm not going to pick against the team that I've picked since the beginning of the year. It won't surprise me if the 49ers win, but I'm picking the Rams to go to the Super Bowl. I think I'm going to stick with what I've been saying since the very beginning. They are something special with just how many playmakers they have across the field, and I think a lot of them want it that badly. And also guys like Donald and Jalen Ramsey and Cooper Kupp and Stafford, like they all want that ring, bro. Like they all want that ring, and I think they're gonna come out the gate for that.
Yeah, to your point, I mean the 49ers aren't, like you said, to kind of with some of the stuff you said, they're not really a good matchup for anyone. Because no one wants to play a team that's going to thump you in the mouth like they can, on the ground, and with some of their defensive guys as well. I do think Shanahan's a slightly better coach than McVay. So one of my hot takes recently, and this could be a biased take, just because I'm trying to tamp down all three of these guys were Washington football team guys, but I think Shanahan, LaFleur, and McVay are all super overrated, like head coaches. Like they're all brilliant offensive minds, but like in terms of holistic head coaches, I think they're all very overrated. LaFleur being the most overrated, Shanahan being the least. I think Shanahan's the best of the bunch. But I also think it is going to be a kind of a home game for the 49ers. I was prepared to go into this and pick the 49ers, but I do think the Rams are just overall the better team. And they'll, I guess, find a way to get it done. But I think it's a toss-up, given like you said, the divisional game, Shanahan and McVay. It makes it a real toss-up. But yeah, because the 49ers have that moxie too. Like you said, the Rams want it really bad, but the 49ers have that energy, and they have made a Super Bowl that didn't win it. And obviously they rally around Jimmy G as well, which is funny because the team seems to want him out, but he does his job for the most part fairly well. So I think all these games at this point are, well, maybe not the Chiefs, but it's kind of a toss up. So, but I think I want to say the 49ers, but I think the Rams probably get it done.
I think that point's a fun one to argue, the coaching part, because I do agree with you that maybe in some senses, maybe you're right in there overrating, but I don't think these three are overrated at all, because I personally think they're three of the top 5 to 7 best coaches in the NFL. I mean, I can't think of many coaches. And you might say, oh yeah, they have all the talent in the world, but they've also proven that they can make runs even with less talent than the teams they play against. I mean, the 49ers were recently in the Super Bowl and they lost, but the Rams got to the Super Bowl the year Todd Gurley got hurt. And somehow with Jared Goff, who's proven to be not a franchise quarterback, McVay got him all the way to the Super Bowl and almost won. I mean, somehow you said he's a great offensive coach. They held the Tom Brady New England Patriots to like 10 points, almost essentially the whole game, and lost on a last second field goal. And they got to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, dude. I mean, that's Sean McVay in his prime. And obviously he has a lot more talent now, but I don't think he's just a great offensive mind. I think he's a solid head coach, and I think the players rally around him. And there's a reason people want to come play for the Rams. I think McVay is very exciting. I actually think he's the best of the three personally. I think Shanahan's also an amazing coach, but I wouldn't argue that either are clutch, but I've seen Shanahan be less clutch in several moments, which makes me a little bit less of a this comes from him being a coordinator all the way to him being a head coach. Makes me a little bit less of a proponent of his, but he's still an incredible coach. And the way he coaches his team is very standard, very straightforward, like, build around the line and on offense, make it his own running scheme, and then just game manage with the quarterback and have a playmaker to do the work for you. And, that concept has been the case since he's been there, and very effective strategy. I think he's an incredible coach in his own right. And LaFleur, I think, is going to get the most crap out of all of them, but let's just keep in mind, it's his third season head coaching, and the dude, I think, is like 34 or 35 and like 7. Like his winning percentage is like 90%. And I understand he hasn't had a lot of playoff success, but in his defense, he could have coached those games better, but he's also won at a rate way higher than most early coaches have. I mean, if you look at the best coaches in the NFL now, Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, guys like that did not have this level of success. Bruce Arians, they didn't have this level of success earlier in their careers. All three of these guys are well ahead of any of the best coaches in the NFL. And if you look at the greatest ones. Like all of these guys are well ahead of any of those guys, at least early in their careers. Like it's not even close. So I that's why I think all three of them are actually like incredible coaches, or at least two of them are incredible. I think LaFleur, regular season wise, has been fantastic, and that's not just Aaron Rodgers. It's not like it's just Rodgers. He's built a great run. Right, he actually uses Aaron Jones. They drafted AJ Dillon. They use him. Their defense is done fine for a team that doesn't really invest money. So I don't know. I'm pretty impressed with those three guys, and that has nothing to do with football team. But I mean, I don't want to make any sour comparisons. But I mean, come on, man. I don't think if you're on the football team, any of you would be upset about having those guys as your head coaches. They're pretty darn incredible.
Yeah. Win the big game. Win the big game. They've all had tons of opportunities to do it, and LaFleur has come up short several times, having one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. McVay didn't get it done. He should get another opportunity here. Kyle, we know, as an offensive coordinator, at least choked a big game away against the Pats. So we'll see.
They've all been head coaches for like 4 or 5 years, if that.
But my point is right now. Like obviously, by the end of their careers, I think they'll all have incredible careers. But
fault them as much when they're super early in their careers to have had the level of success they've had for not winning the big game. Now, if you tell me 5 years down the road when they're still not winning any big games, then I'm with you. But I feel like they're early enough. I think their level of success early in their careers is well beyond that of some of the GOATs that we talk about now. I mean, Belichick had losing records for like his first like 4 or 5 years or whatever it was before he finally started clicking with the Patriots. So we look at it that way. I think they're ahead of the curve in some senses. And I think one of them will. I mean, hey, 2 of them have a really good shot right now to win the big game. So I don't know.
This is the one McVay needs though, because with all the Rams put into this year, like this is the Rams should be the team to win this. Not like obviously it's a tough game, all that stuff, but like with all they put into this year, the Rams should be the one to get it done. We'll see what happens, but move on to Chiefs Bengals. Should be another fun one. A little less close in the spread. I think the Chiefs are 7-point favorites. The Rams are 3. But in Arrowhead, last time, similar to that other matchup, they both played at the end of the regular season, and this was in Cincinnati, but the Bengals got it done late in that game. So it should be another shootout. Yeah, I mean, again, I think we're gonna have a lot of points. I think the concern probably for the Bengals is the pass rush. Like the Chiefs defense has been able to get up to the quarterback a little bit, and the Bengals still can't block. Now I think Chase and Higgins and Boyd are going to torch the Chiefs secondary. Especially, I don't know if they've said anything on Tyrann Mathieu if he is going to be able to clear concussion protocol for this game, but that was a big loss for the Bills game. So. Yeah, I mean, it should be a fun one. It should be high scoring. I think the Chiefs will definitely get it done. And I think specifically, maybe, if they can get a little pass rush going on Burrow, then I think that might be the difference.
I think the Bengals are like the Chiefs light. Like they're like the JV team that just graduated to varsity and is like waiting to take over the reins of the Chiefs. Because if you look at the like their football, like what they're capable of, like their youth and like the playmakers that they have, like they're built in a very similar kind of situation to how the Chiefs took on their success. I just think every player on the Chiefs that is at the position is marginally better at this point in their careers just because they have more experience, right? Like Mahomes versus Burrow. Like, yeah, Mahomes is a better quarterback. Burrow is the young guy who's only 2 seasons in. You look at Travis Kelce, like he's obviously like I would say the Kelce Hill combination is better than the Chase, Higgins, and Tyler Boyd combination, for example. And Mixon's got the edge on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I just think like it comes down to veteran presence, and I think both teams are going to try to do the same thing, put up an immense amount of points, and then hope their defense can make one more stop than the other. And I just think the Chiefs are going to win that game. That's really what it comes down to. And again, it's just because the Bengals are young and they have a bright future ahead of themselves. Shout out to Zach Taylor, by the way. I don't think we've mentioned his name once. Great coach. We haven't mentioned his name once. I don't even know if we talked about him at all this year, maybe once or twice, but he deserves a ton of credit for what he's been able to do with such a young team and to rally a bunch of guys who've never even had an opportunity to be in the playoffs to get all the way to the AFC Championship at this stage in their careers is incredible. But it's going to be hard for me to pick against the Chiefs just because I think the Chiefs are just a few years ahead of the Bengals in the sense of piecing it all together and their success with each other, and Andy Reid having coached that team for years now, they have that camaraderie, and it's gonna be really hard for the Bengals to go into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. If they do, like, it'll be a fantasy, but a fantasy not in the sense of I'm saying it's impossible, fantasy in the sense of it'll be like a storybook kind of thing to see such a young team get to the Super Bowl. But I don't see this Chiefs teams losing, bro. Like, again, the Chiefs are picked to win the AFC at the beginning of the year. I think I picked the Rams Chiefs, and I'm sticking to that. Like, I don't there's no reason for me to pick against the Chiefs at this point.
Yeah, I will say the Bengals won't be faced by Arrowhead, given who the guy leading them is, Joe Burrow. But yeah, I do think it'll be tough though. It's like, I mean, if they allowed 9 sacks last week, like, that's going to be a challenge. But to your point, if they could run the ball, keep the ball out of Pat's hands, they did beat him a couple weeks ago, albeit in Cincinnati in a regular season game. So I think they could. One thing from a couple seasons ago with the playoffs with the Chiefs is they tended to start slow. Like, I remember that Titans game. I think it was a AFC Championship game where the Titans came out to an early lead, and then Pat just like went ludicrous, as he tends to do. So maybe we see something like that where the Bengals kind of come out hot and then the Chiefs just kind of roll them up. But yeah, I think we'll see. It should be fun once again. Then we'll get to our Super Bowl matchup for this year. I don't know. I think that's it. It on my side.
So so to clarify for our viewers, I think the picks from us are, we both went Bengals and Rams, or sorry, we both went Rams and Chiefs in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
No wavering there? You seem a little unsure.
I want to pick the 49ers, but to your point, I think it feels like the Rams year in the sense that they should win, and I think they're the more complete and just overall good team.
One good thing is, no matter which one of these teams goes or which one of these teams wins, I'm going to be very happy, because they're all fun teams all around and have great players all around, and have a lot of deserving players all around. Obviously, the Chiefs would be the most boring outcome because we've seen them win once in the last 2 years, and this is going to be, if they go to the Super Bowl, be their third time in 3 years going to the Super Bowl. But that's also how dynasties are formed, so I can't be upset about that. And Mahomes is so likable. What you said about him breaking a celebration to go hug Josh Allen and tell him how amazing he is and everything like that. That's the kind of franchise guy that you want to root for. And he really is such a great role model from everything that I see. So would not be upset about the Chiefs winning it all, but any of the other 3 teams getting there and winning, it's going to be fun to root for them, because there's just so many likable players and likable personnel on those teams. So I'm happy with the outcome. I to be honest, I just didn't want to watch Tom Brady again in the Super Bowl. I was sick of it. I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. So I was super happy about the results there, and not the biggest Titans guy as a Colts fan. So good weekend.
Yeah. I'm going to disagree a little bit in that the Bills I really wanted to see there. No disrespect to the Chiefs, because they're so fun to watch, but it just kind of, I thought it was the Bills' time. So I was looking forward to that. And then Green Bay, I definitely want to see Aaron get there. And the Rams kind of bothered, like they rubbed me the wrong way a little bit with all the guys they picked up mid-season, even though they were already stacked. So, but they're certainly a fun team to watch. So, Super Bowl is always good. Well, it's always good teams that are fun to watch either way. So, we'll see.
Well, I think I will say, I think my ideal situation in the sense of fun would be a Bills-Bengals AFC Championship, and then maybe a Rams-Packers NFC Championship. But I guess what I'm saying is all the teams that are there, I'm not rooting against any of them. You know what I mean? Saying like you usually with the Buccaneers or the Titans, I don't think like you're not on the same page as me. But for example, with if the Buccaneers or Titans had made it, I would clearly be rooting for the other team personally, just because of my biases towards Tennessee or towards Brady, right? So that's kind of the point I'm making. They're all teams that are likable.
I'm somewhat indifferent on in the sense that I
exactly.
Although I mean I would love to see the Bengals there, but I'm not sure how realistic it is. But that would be incredible for the
this far is unbelievable.
I know.
I just gave them that kind of love. So
imagine if I told you before the season that the Cincinnati Bengals were gonna be the Super Bowl. That would just be,
dude. I feel the same way about imagine if I told you 5 weeks into the season the 49ers were going to be in the NFC Championship. I mean, they didn't look like they had anything left to give after the first quarter of the season, and then They figured it out. It's been basically two teams that we expected, and then two teams we didn't expect at all, which is what's beautiful about it, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited, and we got to make sure we get Bakulik with his picks this week sent to us, so he doesn't come here complaining about me taking a lead on what he considers a technicality. But let's be real here. I've outpicked him for the last couple of weeks in a row, so I gotta get that guy to send his picks in, so he can't make any excuses.
Yeah, unless we wait the playoff games more, I don't think he can catch you. So I don't know. It's all a matter of bragging rights at this point. But yeah, we'll just sit back, relax, enjoy the games. Hopefully we're back on next week with, I guess maybe next week we'll recap and Super Bowl preview, and then the week after maybe do some betting stuff as we look ahead to the big game since we get the extra week off. But yeah, anything else to say?
Stay tuned for our Super Bowl special. We might have something a little fun coming y'all's way, and we won't reveal too much information yet, but stay tuned for that, peeps.
We'll see. We shouldn't set expectations too high, though.
That's not right. Expectations. It's just going to be more unique than what we usually do, right? That's kind of.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. As always, how's Mondays down south?